You know, it's taken me a while to really try to get the words out to talk about Dan. Since Dan died, it's been kind of difficult trying to get back in the groove with videos and things like that, because every time I go to start thinking about videos, I start thinking about Dan. I wanted to make something that was quicker and just try to get my thoughts out and kind of just talk about my memories of Dan. I know many of you know that Dan Mish, MyMickers, one of the best YouTube fragrance reviewers, he passed away not too long ago. And I may have the closest relationship to Dan in the fragrance community. He and I talked frequently. We had each other's phone number and we would talk on the phone. And Dan was a great reviewer. Like I said, one of the best. What I loved about Dan is everything that he made was a passion project. All of his videos were talking about something that he genuinely had a passion for. It didn't come from any kind of commercial point of view, though there's nothing wrong with that. It was just like this really pure form of reviewing, and that's what I really loved about him. He frequently brought his family on, and one of the things he's really known for is his really lively personality and his laugh. He's also known for the style of fragrances that he really liked. He really liked really earthy vetivers. He really liked stinky ouds. He really liked musky fragrances or dark fragrances. He loved where the rabbit hole went. And I don't remember how our friendship started. I really don't remember how that whole thing started. I remember seeing him in the fragrance community, and he was around before we started as a fragrance channel. And we actually made a video about why we love Dan Mish, MyMickers. It was me and my initial partner on the channel. His name was Steve-O. And we talked about why we love MyMickers. One of the reasons why we wanted to do that is because we genuinely loved him. And the other reason why was because we just wanted to kind of get his attention in a way and get the community's attention. Somehow, I don't remember how, but we just started chatting on the phone just about fragrances and life and that kind of thing. I remember around that time he married Amanda. You got to see his whole life, just change through YouTube. I really love that. One year, a few years ago, we were talking on the phone, and he threw the idea around of going on vacation and wanted to ask if he could come to Mobile for vacation. I said, yeah, I love that. That'd be amazing. That'd be just really fun. It'd be fun to hang out with him. And we let him stay in our home. And my wife even took off a few days of work to work around the schedule. And we had 2 little kids, and they're about a year apart. And at that time, I think my oldest was 2. And so my youngest was about 1. So we had a lot going on. So my wife took off work. Amanda couldn't come, and that was one thing that I remember Dan was upset about. He was sad, I should say. He really wanted Amanda to come, and we all did too, because we would have loved to see the whole family. It was really fun having Dan. We put him in our bedroom, our master bedroom, and we slept in our pull-out couch that changes into a bed. Our 2 bedrooms were filled with kids. And I remember he documented this whole process of him coming down, and he put pictures of him on the airplane, which apparently it was the first time he was on an airplane. And I remember when we went to go pick him up at the airport, and it was Dan. I mean, Dan was Dan. And that was one thing that I really loved about him, is that everything you see on the video is exactly what you'd expect for him in real life. Dan was Dan. He came down in his vest, and he had some Crocs on and his hat. I remember another thing that was really funny was Dan is exactly as tall as you think he is. I just thought that was really funny. And then so we took him home, and I remember he got settled in our bedroom, And he even took a picture of his feet and put that while he was in the bed in our room. He put that on Facebook. I thought that was really funny. There's just so many things about this whole trip that were just really funny and really heartwarming. So I wanted to talk about them just because it'll just help me talk about Dan and have an aspect of Dan that you might not have ever seen. I remember the first morning he woke up, and we were still on the bed, and I think our son woke up first, and he came in and climbed in the bed. And then Dan came in. I think my wife got up and she was doing something else. And then Dan came in and my son was laying down with me. And Dan came in and lied down in the bed and right by Ewan and me. And I was like, wow, this is such an awkward, such an awkward moment for me. We had a few things in store for Dan over the time that we were here. And Mobile is a nice city. It has a lot of history here, going back hundreds and hundreds of years. And so I wanted to kind of show some of that to him because I thought he might think that was cool. Of course, Mobile is not as touristy as bigger places with a lot more to offer, but it has its own certain charms. So that's what I really love about the city. One of the places that we went to on, I think, the first day, we went to Fort Conde. Fort Conde is this Spanish fort. It was a military fort built in its downtown Mobile near the bay. So downtown Mobile is right in the water. So Fort Conde is right there overlooking the water. And it's a museum now of sorts, and you can go in there for free. And so we thought it'd just be kind of a fun introduction to go in there and go to some place that was free and just kind of look around, show him some place that he's probably never been to before, even though we'd all been there before, especially as school kids going there. That's like one of the places you go to for field trips when you're in elementary school. And that was pretty fun. It's always pretty fun doing something like that. It's even more fun going with someone who has never seen it before and has fresh eyes. It's almost like going somewhere with a kid. And so that was really great. Now, I remember one of the things that really popped out about that Fort Conde visit was that in the courtyard, there was a fig tree. And I remember talking to Dan about fig fragrances and why I love fig as a note, but fig fragrances don't necessarily get the note right. And they still don't. The fig leaves were there, and I had him smell the leaves, and he was, that spark goes off. He's like, wow, okay. So that was pretty fun, just showing him my kind of obsession with fig leaves and fig trees. And we went to some other places too, like we went to this local donut shop here in town that is magnificent. It has these maple bacon donuts that are incredible, and also these donuts with Conecuh sausage on the inside. And if you don't know what Conecuh is, or Conecuh sausage, Conecuh is a city in Alabama that makes this sausage that is really particular to the South. So he had a donut with Conecuh sausage in there. And I remember that blew his mind, And I also loved just some of the other things that he noticed about Mobile. Like we talked a lot about the power lines. In a lot of the city, they haven't buried the power lines yet, so the power lines are still going overhead. He lives in a part of the country where they have a lot of snow, so of course they buried the power lines there. And he also noticed that we have neighborhoods that have names in the front of them. He doesn't have that. He thought it was almost like this hoity-toity kind of pretentious type of thing. I thought that was funny. And some of the things that maybe no one knows about Dan is that he chewed tobacco, used chewing tobacco. And that's gross by itself. But what was funny about it, and what was even more gross, was that he would just swallow it. He wouldn't spit it out. He would just swallow it. And that concerned me some. I remember talking to him a little bit about it. And we have so many pictures of everywhere we went doing like the whole Fragrance Bros type of motion. Almost everywhere we went, we did that. It's really funny. To us anyway, probably not to anyone else. We went to another place called the Battleship, which is a decommissioned battleship from World War II. And it's right on the bay. You can go there. It's another place that's a museum. It costs a little bit to get in there, but it's really fun to go in. And of course, we've been in there several times because, of course, elementary school. But he loved it. The movie Under Siege from the 80s with Steven Seagal was filmed in the Battleship. He didn't know that. And because the Battleship is a museum of sorts, there's lots of places that have you know, like these little glassed in little areas that you can just kind of look in and see models of what the crew would be doing or what's on that particular deck, etc. And then later on, after the fact, Dan went to go watch Under Siege and noticed that those those little glass little museum little things were in the movie, were in Under Siege. That was really funny. I hadn't noticed that. And while he was here, of course, we did a couple of videos. I remember we did Dior Homme O, and we did Javanese Patchouli by Ermenegildo Zegna.
Hey y'all, it's Mickers here, and I'm in Alabama, land of sweet tea and moon pies. Let's get this started.
And I had a lot of fun reviewing with him. It was so much fun. Another place that we went to was a restaurant called The Hungry Owl, which has since closed. And he had this huge burger, and it's just always really fun taking someone to just these nice little cool places to eat. But on one of the days, right before when he had to leave, he was playing with my son, and I have a video of this. He's playing with my son, just having a blast with my son and stuff like that. And my son, I remember, started doing these spin jumps. And then later that night, my son was limping on his leg, and I talked to my wife. I said, why is he limping? Is something wrong with him? So the next day, we went to the doctor, and he had a fractured leg. There was a fracture in his leg, so he got a cast. That was just a random, wild thing about that whole story. And on the last day of his stay with us, we went to the beach. And so there's not many beaches in Wisconsin, obviously. I don't know if he's been to the beach or not, but he really enjoyed it. We made sure no sand got in my son's cast. Went to Dauphin Island. He walked out in the sand, went to the water. We got a picture of him in the water. And then I remember, you know, it was a perfect day, a nice cool breeze. And he talked about coming again and bringing Amanda with him. And I said, man, that would be so cool. That'd be so amazing. You guys could stay in a condo, you know, on the beach or something like that. I just remember everything about Dan was just centered around fragrances and having fun and his wife and family. He talked a lot about his family, and we had a lot of conversations. Some of them were deep and profound. Some of them were very lighthearted, and a lot of them were about family and things that we loved and fragrances and things. In recent years, Dan had continued doing his fragrance thing, and we had talked a lot on the phone about a lot of our frustrations about where the fragrance community currently is and things like that. And I didn't have a lot of answers, you know. I'm flying in the dark just like he was. He just wanted to always follow his passion and do what he did. I always really respected that. And I remember one night he called me and he was just talking about how much he respected me. He just loved my channel and loved everything that I did and respected what I did. You do what everyone else does when someone gives you a compliment. You know, you just shrug it off, and so I'll say, oh man, thank you, I appreciate it. But you know, you're doing great too, etc. Now I look back at that conversation and it makes me thankful and it makes me sad. And we would still talk intermittently on the phone occasionally. And I always remember thinking, you know, I need to call Dan more. I need to call Dan more. And before he died, I just remember thinking, I need to call Dan. I need to call Dan. The day that he died, that day, I was like, I'm going to call Dan tomorrow. Then I got the news that Dan died. I still, honestly, I just can't believe it. I just wish that I had talked to Dan sooner. I don't know the circumstances of Dan dying. I don't know what happened. I just wish that I talked to Dan more. I'm really going to miss Dan. I'm really going to miss his laugh. I'm really going to miss his presence in the fragrance community. Dan was my friend. He was one of the few friends in this fragrance community that I have that I went to talk about and to complain, to laugh with, to just kind of shoot the breeze with. Dan was a brother. I am just really going to miss him. I really wished I had another chance to bring back Dan to Mobile and to hang out with him again. I really wanted to see him again. I really wanted to have him and Amanda come and visit. When Dan passed, I didn't get to go to his funeral. I didn't get to go to his burial, his memorial service, or whatever they had going on. That really stung. I really wanted to. It's difficult to go because it's so far away in Wisconsin, and just, we couldn't make it happen. Gonna miss Dan and those Crocs and that silly hat and his Harley, all his stinky fragrances that he loved. I'm gonna miss talking to him about reviewers that we find questionable and fragrances that we hate. I'm really gonna miss him. He was a great friend. He was a great dad, a great husband. He died too soon. Call your friends. Call your friend that you haven't talked to in a while. Say hello. Tell them you miss them and that you love them and you wish them well. Go see them. Go share a meal together. Go somewhere fun. Don't call tomorrow. I'm sure some of you already know, but Amanda, Mish, Dan's wife, has a GoFundMe account for just asking for donations for burials and expenses and things like that. I'll have a link down to that below. They're already over goal, but we should go well beyond what she asked for. There's lots of hidden expenses that you don't think of outside of that. And on top of that, they were a 2-income home going down to 1 income. It's going to be difficult for a while. Talking to Amanda, she briefly went over some of the things they had planned, and I can't imagine what they're going through. And my deepest condolences are for her and her family. My prayers, of course, are for them and for their hearts and their home. We also want to try to sell off his fragrances. I know he had an extensive collection, and I'm sure that Amanda probably wants to clean some of that out too. I'm going to be talking to her, trying to get some of that done. All the proceeds of that will go to her. Let's help her out, help out their family if we can. Anything helps. The more I know about the situation with the bottles and stuff like that, I'll let you know. But in the meantime, that is my video about Dan. I know it was long. I guess I don't have anything more to say. Expect more videos from me soon. Thanks for watching as always. I'll see you next time. I'm Dave with Fragrance Bros.